guys, welcome to Activate Worcester. Glad to see you, and hopefully you feel the same way. It would be great if you tell your folks, your friends about the show. We try to be interesting and maybe a little provocative. And the title of the show is Activate Worcester. It's to maybe shake some things up and to get things moving, and that's what we try to do with the show. In fact, there's a little booklet, if you want to call it that, kind of interesting. I don't know if you can see it. No, we're not selling this. It's Worcester, and it's a 300th anniversary. But the key thing is the tagline is Worcester was a city of innovators. And we have Jay Givan, of course, as our guest tonight again. And thank you for gracing the EIB station.
Worcester Command.
The Worcester Command. That's right. But a city of innovators. My question is, at this point, are we still a city of innovators? Are we innovating anything, or is it the same old, on and again? What's your thought on that?
Only if wokeism is an innovation. I first came onto your show a few years ago because you wanted to discuss an idea that I had. Located in Worcester, a Massachusetts Hall of Fame.
Incidentally, guys, he's exactly right. Pardon me. And that was not meant to be a political action step, excuse me. It was something that the more he and I talked about, I thought this was great, not just for the city itself, but for the state. There's an awful lot going on in this state and has gone on, but we're not so good about talking about it. And please, hit them with the genesis of the whole idea.
So you've got the Baseball Hall of Fame, you've got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you've got all these Hall of Fames. I think Long Island has a Jewish Athletes Hall of Fame.
Yeah, they do.
Rhode Island, an Aviators Hall of Fame. Rhode Island Aviators. Mm-hmm. Who would have thought? And so you start thinking about it. And why can't this state have a Hall of Fame? I mean, we've got the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield.
But that's directed to a sport,
right?
Not to a state, which was
Correct.
What your idea was.
Because when you start Googling people, Gina Davis is from Wareham. Oh, we all know Betty Davis is from Lowell, or Barbara Walters, or the guy I can never think of from Lynn, Walter Brennan. I mean, okay, this is going back a few years. And there's a lot of newer famous people. I don't think they'd be Hall ready yet, just based on the way Hall of Fames work. But then you get into business and innovators. Just in your book, the David Clark Company. They basically started out as a girdle company, undergarments, and ended up in the space and aviation.
Robert Goddard.
At Robert Goddard. You've got all the ball bearings and all of that stuff at
was it Heald?
Norton Company. Yeah, you got Heald's. I think at one point, and this is my dad talking, so I don't know if it's a dad story or what, but I think at one point there were more millionaires per capita in Worcester than in any other place in the country. Mm-hmm. That is certainly not the case today. So what's this book going to look like in Worcester 400?
Interesting thought.
I mean, history is great. I think it's a good tourism thing. And I'm dead serious about the issue. And it's music, it's innovation, science. It's incredible.
How about education? Oh my God. What state parallels this state? Or even in biomed and everything else. There are so many amazing things and amazing people that have come from here and that have contributed. And yeah, Worcester City of Innovators, with Massachusetts as a state, same story. But nobody is shepherding the whole package and pulling it together and making it happen. And it's a terrible waste of an asset, the way I see it, which is exactly why I invited Jay on those many years ago to talk about this.
So I did send an email at the time, excuse me, to all the city councilors. And some got back, some didn't. I expected that. I won't mention names, but there are a couple that at least weren't very interested in it because they're history buffs, and why not? Mm-hmm. There are certain steps I or the process needs to go through, to try to keep it in Worcester, and then they need a much more defined something or other, so they know exactly what they're voting on, like eligibility and that sort of thing.
Parameters.
Right, because I forget the guy's name, because there was a guy that played for the Los Angeles Dodgers in the 60s and 70s. He won the Gold Glove, it's like the Rookie of the Year, MVP, batting titles, and all of this stuff, all the championships for the Dodgers. He is not in the Hall of Fame, because he only played 9 years, and to be eligible for Cooperstown, you need to play 10 years.
That's right.
But if there were a California Hall of Fame, I mean, he'd be right there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Maybe not so much Gavin Newsom.
That's another story. The thing of it, first of all, it should be done for the state, for the Commonwealth, as we call it. But the idea of focusing it and actually having it right here in Worcester makes a great deal of sense because it's in the middle of the state. And if it's typically Boston-centric, it's going to be in Cambridge or someplace.
It'll be overlooked.
It'll be overlooked, without a doubt. They look at anything literally west of 495 as the Midwest. And that's not the way it should be. So if something like that could happen, this would be the place. Easy to get to. Second biggest city in all of New England. We hear that trumpeted many, many times. Major airport, JetBlue, blah, blah, blah. We're not some outback. And all of that, this could be kind of like a catalyst for the whole area. If you can put the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, for God's sakes.
Well, Alan Freed was the one that did coin the phrase rock and roll.
Cleveland, or he was the moondog in Cleveland and all that stuff. Not really. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame belonged, frankly, either in Chicago, in New York, maybe L.A., But those are a couple of different places that if I ruled the world that I would have gone with. Cleveland was why, I'm not sure. But all these other things, I would love to see something like this take off, and I don't know where we go with it. I don't know if the idea is totally dormant at this point. But the other thing that it would do.
Well, I have told a couple candidates for city council about this.
Do they have enough juice to get it rolling?
Maybe one of them, but they'd have to get elected first.
But you got to start somewhere. I understand that. But the thing of it is that it would do, as I started alluding to a couple of minutes ago, if you were able to put a Massachusetts Hall of Fame, it's not a liberal or a conservative or Republican Hall of Fame. There'd be no real hardcore politics in it. It might be something that could be kind of a galvanizing concept and would actually bring people together. Those are the reasons why I think it's atrocious that we haven't done anything more with that, even with this show, to try to, drum up some interest in this, to transcend liberal, Democrat, Republican, all that sort of business, progressive. I'd love to see that happen.
Well, as I mentioned in the previous episode, I think it was about housing we were talking about. It's no longer right and left, but up and down.
Yeah, it's very, very, very cogent point. Folks, you're watching this. If you have any thoughts on this concept of the Massachusetts Hall of Fame, please get in touch with us here. Love to hear your comment. You may say it's ridiculous, or it's ridiculous that we haven't done anything. And maybe we can, you got to start somewhere. And maybe the movement really begins this year here in Worcester with Activate Worcester. I'd love to get actively involved with it because I think it has tremendous possibilities for a lot of people, period. So,
Yeah, I mean, I can't even say it's politically neutral, it's just non-political, period.
non-political, yeah, which nowadays, wouldn't it be nice to have something that was truly non-political? It's
And-
like, enough of this stuff, right?
You know, and the city does need more of a social life, other than going to some, bar with sticky floors or, or some
Go see
overpriced.
wrestling down at,
Yeah, or a $15 hamburger and.
yeah, which is about where it's coming from now. Just to go in another direction, if I can. You seem to have some interesting concepts or interesting observations of what's going on. We have to jump back in the pool, the political pool, nationally. What do you see happening?
Nationally. This always comes back to locally. If we don't get the border under control, we're a border state already, but if we become a magnet, at which Worcester will be, we're going to be flooded with people, and you get too many people into one area, it's a strain on services to begin with. When you have unskilled, maybe diseased, the criminal element, they don't speak English, that's no fault of their own. You're looking at a complete disaster. The economy is, people are doing well, but people who need to be doing well the most are not. And, it's funny. I'm going to get back to Worcester and some other thing.
Sure.
But if you're making $50,000 a year, right, your state income tax is what, 5%? So that's what?
2,500.
Yeah, $2,500. Right? What's your property tax bill? It's probably $6,000 or $7,000 at this point.
Yep.
So, as much as you and I can't stand Maura Healy, and probably Charlie Baker as well, the state's not the problem in that sense. Your local communities are. And so it's your city council that needs to control spending. I get the thing the last few years, and Donna Calorio was brilliant with the lowest residential tax rate. And it's obviously that's great, but I could make the residential tax rate 0. Just make all the commercial rate pay for everything. I could cut the rate in half, just double valuation.
Or just have what they call a VAT, a value-added tax, that you don't have any of this other stuff. It's a consumption-based tax. So whenever you buy something, you're going to pay 15 to 20%, whatever. But you're not going to have all this other nonsense layered on top of it.
Right, but ultimately you can, whatever's on this side of the equal sign is irrelevant because the bottom line is on the other side, and that's your tax bill. And that's a function of spending, and spending is way out of control in the city. Having said that, we both know that when you cut taxes, you attract business. And when business comes in, the economy expands. When the economy expands, people, everybody is better off. That rising tide lifts all the ships. But it's the people on the lower end of things that benefit the most. Of course, a Hall of Fame would add jobs and all that. But if we're going to take something like inclusionary zoning, and I think the quote-unquote affordable units are 60% AMI, average median income.
I think that's right.
We focus way too much on affordable housing, but not affordable business. Now, what is housing? That's shelter. What is shelter? That's one of the 5 basic human needs: shelter, food, water, clothing, and sleep. Well, if you get them into a housing unit under IZ or 40B or whatever the program is, can they still afford the other four basic needs? They probably can't. So why not have, in addition to, I'd replace it actually, instead of affordable housing, affordable business. So that you build an IZ housing project here, take a 1 mile radius, and every business that sells one of those basic human needs, food, water, clothing, and sleep, their tax rate would be discounted based on the lowest AMI in the IZ project.
Again, to use the other expression of a TIF, a tax incentive.
It may be effectively the same thing.
Yeah, basically the same thing. Because, even when you think of the city, where we're drawing all these new apartments in and so on and so forth, where are they going to go and buy food? Where are they going to buy many of the things you just alluded to? The answer is out of the city. So even though the people are living here, you're not using them as a sales base, if you want to use that expression, to support these things, which would be a beautiful thing for everybody concerned, because that would mean they don't have to go out of the city, they save money that way, you create jobs, and maybe you create what we used to call neighborhoods. And Worcester is just at least my perspective is, it's a conglomeration of a number of neighborhoods. And little by little, they used to use a term called blockbusting. Well, in a bizarre way, this is blockbusting. Because what you're really doing is destroying the neighborhood and bringing people in who are just going to plotch and then head out.
Right.
And this is not healthy for anybody. And I don't understand why the city is not more aggressive pinpoint accuracy going after people who can provide those things other than cannabis and the many medical facilities.
There's a human need.
Yeah, I mean, enough is enough. I think we have enough cannabis.
I mean, we can't become a city of cannabis, nail salons, and cell phone kiosks.
And bar rooms.
Yeah. You can't.
Well, let me ask you this. You're a guy. Let's say, and not that guys wear suits anymore, but if you did, where would you go here in the city? Or let's say you were a female, okay? In the city, where would you go for clothing? Good
That's
clothing?
very woke of you.
Oh, yes, I've been bitten by the bug too. It's unreal. No, but things like that just don't exist. And in the old days, and I've been in the Worcester area basically. Yeah, exactly. I've been in the Worcester area basically since the early 70s. And there was never a dearth of places to go for things like this. And now suddenly you can't find them unless you leave the city and go to, either out towards 495 or whatever. And it's a shame.
Well, that's another thing. The less affluent the city becomes, the worse the merchandise gets in the retailers. Because if you're like Kohl's or TJ Maxx or whatever the stores are, they thought, okay, this neighborhood only makes $30,000 a year or whatever the numbers are.
Sure.
They can't buy a $200 leather jacket. They're not going to buy the real expensive stuff. They don't have the discretionary money. Mm-hmm. So they put in the cheap crap. And then the people that do have discretionary money, they're like, this is just a junk store. I'm going to Natick. I'm going to wherever it is. I'm going to Kittery, Freeport. Buy online.
Well, if you do those
then you can't get it delivered because...
That's another story. But the thing that, just with what you said, buying things online, i.e. Amazon or anything else, or going to a mall out of town, you're not dealing with the homeless people that are walking around and, making a mess and stealing stuff. And I'm not saying the homeless all steal, because they don't. But there's enough momentum out there for people to be stealing stuff left and right, that the retailers who have expensive merchandise are going to be out of here, and those that remain, they're going to be building into their profit structure a certain factor that they know pilferage is going to be involved. So rather than spending $14 for something, you'll have to spend 17 or 18 here because they have that built in. They know that there's that much action going on, and it's.
Oh, well, this is right. This is how this stuff trickles out. You subsidize the housing, but again, 99% of people are just fantastic. But statistically, now you look at 40B, and it's a 10% mandate. And who are the communities that have reached that 10%? Chelsea, Revere, Brockton, Lawrence, Holyoke, Springfield, New Bedford, Fall River.
Pearls of the Orient, every one of them, right?
Worcester, and there's a few others. But none of these places, who wants to move to these places? You move there because it's either free housing, or you can't afford. If you can't afford Weston, and nobody has a right to live any place. And I'm not talking about discrimination in financially. If you can't afford something, if you can't afford a Rolls Royce, you buy a Chevy Malibu. No, if you're a car collector, you don't start off with a 1928 Duesenberg. No, you start off with maybe a '69 Chevelle or something, and worked up, or whatever the case may be.
Well,
if you can't afford Worcester, you go to, some other place. Now, that's what the automobile is for.
Unfortunately, Worcester has always had the reputation of being an affordable place to live. That's changing and changing fast. But then again, you keep hearing, with everything, the dynamics that are happening in the economy, it's been so superheated, meaning the cost of housing, that there's going to be a major crash. And that'll have some real impact both on rentals and obviously on purchases of houses.
Well, if we don't put adults in charge, the banking industry is in big trouble. Particularly if you listen to Elon Musk on Tucker Carlson the other night.
I did. Amazing.
When interest rates go up, values go down. And nobody wants to pay another $400 tax increase if the valuation is going down.
Yeah.
And then another thing, statistically, and you don't even have to look this up, this is just common sense. The higher the income in any particular area, the less crime there is. The lower the income, the more crime there is. So when you're bringing in more low income, statistically you're bringing in more crime. So I think it's a little ironic.
And what it does is it expands.
It expands out because then it gets into the calls and the merchandise. You need to subsidize the theft and whatnot. It's not so ironic, but you heard about the 2 stabbings last night at Clark University.
Sure did. Yeah.
I hope those 2 guys recover well and quickly. I hope the stabber really gets the book thrown at him. But I think it's ironic that here we have Worcester's most woke people, are Clark graduates. Yeah. Atal Haji, I think it's Councilwoman 2 Twee and 1 2 Twee and some of the other people. They want to defund the police, and they're all Clark people, and they have this happen.
Ironic.
And I mean, it's a criminal safe space.
I have no answer for you because that's exactly what it's become. The thing that scares the hell out of me is anytime you watch any news reports nowadays and you see what's happening in so many cities where people are able to loot, and the cops, if they do anything, they just look at them. And I don't blame them, because if you're a cop, do you really want to, first of all, run the risk of being photographed, beating up some young kid, 15 of them, walking with $500 worth of stuff, which they're not going to be prosecuted for anyway. So if you're a cop, why stand in the middle of something like that? If you don't have law and order, guys, you got nothing. If you don't have a border, you don't have a country. And little by little, those two things are manifest. We're in this little bubble called Worcester, okay? Thank God we have very, very little crime, relatively speaking, and we have very little gang violence. And you can't say that about so many other parts of this country right now that are bad and getting a lot worse. And I'm really afraid that this is going to be a very, very hot summer. And I think a lot of it is going to be with the people like George Soros encouraging this to happen.
Well, I mean, we are a second-tier city.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not these big cities. But when the gangs or the criminals or whoever, whatever you want to call them, realize that Worcester is open, why wouldn't they come here?
They're going to be here. They're going to be here. And this is why, guys, we can't have politicians who are going to force, to defund the cops. If anything, you need to heat up on it at this point. You need more eyes out there to see what's going on. And when you do that, people will, you're always going to have the bad dudes. They're never going to go away. But those who are on the cusp, if they know that there's going to be consequences for bad behavior, maybe you're not going to have that as a problem. And maybe if you have people that really believe in the city and care about it and care about each other, we'll have as good a place to live as you possibly can. But it's on us. We can't farm that out. And it's very, very sad to see what's going on. At any rate, we're drawing to a close. I want to thank Jay once again for coming and sharing all sorts of different insights. And I really want to recur with this theme that we talked about earlier about a Massachusetts Hall of Fame. I think that there's something there that's very, very positive for us. And this show will be pushing it literally whenever we can from this point forward. So I thank you for your idea, and I thank you for the guts to put it out there. And let's see if we can do something.
Well, the good news is, no one has said this is a bad idea, no matter who these people are.
You get enough people together, we get to the right folks, who knows what can happen.
Yeah, you just need a little vision.
Well, we got the vision, now let's implement it, period. So, again, folks, thank you for watching Activate Worcester. We will be on with another hopefully interesting show. Please watch us again and tell your folks about it, tell your friends about it. I think we've got some good thoughts going on here. And other than that, thank you very much for watching and good night.